You should be decided to eat those now.
Quiet on set. Got it right in the field of view with that one.
Donut.
Espresso.
I had never associated the Lincoln brand with anything to do with performance, motorsports, any sort of high action driving. It was comfort and luxury and everything that you would associate with a very old woman from Florida who probably shouldn't be driving but owns a Lincoln.
My great-grandfather drove one. I remember as a kid him driving home in a silver Lincoln. A Lincoln's a car for an older generation.
All that I knew about Lincoln beforehand is that Joe's dad drove a Lincoln. That was about as much as I knew.
Your grandfather's daily driver?
Yeah.
Maybe your parents.
So you didn't really care for them in any way, or?
I have no interest in owning one, driving one, that's nothing, no.
Lincoln hasn't made a cool car in a very, very long time.
I'm a Ford boy, family always has been. I've grown up middle class, so Lincoln has just been unattainable for us.
They weren't really ever known for performance cars going back. I think the last manual transmission they had was in the 50s. Lincoln was just kind of vibing for old people, and there wasn't really a whole lot going on with them.
I did and still do believe that they're for old people. Those new 4-doors, they're not new anymore, but the ones with those funky door handles, those are cool. But the rest of the product line, it's for geriatrics. Like, you're lucky they can get out of the nursing home.
I didn't actually know the Lincoln LS was a car. I think when most people hear that, yeah, we have a Lincoln race car, they're like, what's wrong with you?
Max decided to buy our specific Lincoln for his own daily use. It had come pre-crashed. He bought it in Ohio, so strike two, and we all kind of gave him crap for buying it. We're like, why would you buy it? And he went on and on about, oh, well, the 5-speed Lincoln LS is super duper rare. They only made 3,300 or whatever.
2000.
After pit race, when we decided that the race truck was gonna not work, we were on our way back from the winner's circle. We decided that it would be really funny if we traded the race truck for his Lincoln. And I went to one of the judges after the race and I told him this idea. Has there ever been a Lincoln LS in Lens? He says, no, you gotta do it. So from that point forward, we were dead set on getting this Lincoln.
Everyone was rooting for the S10 at pit race. When you guys came back, Joey pulled me aside and he said, Jacob and Max just traded. I scratched my head and I said, what did they trade? You said the S10 for Max's Lincoln. I was flabbergasted, I couldn't believe it. I don't know who the hell would do that.
I think me, got the better end of that deal. I will say though, the team had invested significantly more money in that S10 than Max's Lincoln was worth. Significantly more.
The first time I ever worked on the Lincoln, I think we had just finished our finals. Joe reached out to me and he said, hey, come over to my house and help me with this Lincoln. I think we changed out all of the suspension in the rear. After that, everyone else sort of went their ways. Everyone got their jobs and left college.
None of us live in the same place. We had to spend several weekends traveling to the same place to work on the car for 3 or 4 days at a time.
I always knew about the Max Moment team and the cars that they were building and the endurance car racing. I was so jealous because I simply couldn't afford it with money and time. Joe reached out to me and he said, hey, do you want to come and work on the Lincoln? I was like, oh yeah, the race car, I'd like to work on that, but I'm not, there's no way I can get out there to work on it. I think Jacob hit me up a few days later, maybe a week later, and he said, come and work on the car. I was so happy. He had me in the trap. He knew it. He's like, oh, this guy wants to work on a Lincoln? Okay.
Building the Need for Speed Lincoln was a long and thought out process. So I missed out on doing the S10 itself. I was an arrive and drive, I was a pay driver. So I really got an opportunity to kind of dig into the Lincoln as we built the first one. Tearing apart the interior like a day, we found dead cockroaches in the door panel, which is wild. The cardboard on the roof, which was nuts. We emptied the fish tank out of the taillights.
We had to do general maintenance and make sure that that was done already. And then from there, we had to do all of the race prepping. The car had to get a cage fabricated. The car had to get all of the fire suppression, seat, belts.
We did coilover suspension, wider wheels and tires. We did bigger brakes. We did a few, let's call it, interior maintenance items. Made sure that the dash still fit in there so it kind of looked like a street car.
The Lincoln has a very prehistoric alarm system where unless certain modules are plugged in or not plugged in, it will refuse to start. So we had to figure out a way to relocate the ignition cylinder onto the center of the dash and put in a digital dash without telling the car that it was stolen. We would leave work weekends with that not running and not knowing why.
One day I gave Jacob a call and I'm like, I gotta hook up on modems if we want to live stream. A cop buddy of mine was doing modem replacements in the cruisers, and I asked him, I'm like, what are you doing with them? And he's like, you want them? I just remember a short burst of excitement when we're like, we can record and stream to friends and family who want to watch us.
I think by the second work weekend, it was kind of understood that if you're gonna try to do something mechanically or electrically with the car, it needs to be like checked off by me. I would give the approval like, yes, that's gonna work, or no, you're stupid, don't do that.
A quick release hub for the Lincoln was not something we could purchase. And we thought it would be really funny if we filmed a video of a pit stop where we had to unscrew the steering wheel.
And now I'm pulling in the pit. Yep. All right, good.
Where's the thing?
As I was filming it, I slipped on all of the tools on the ground.
My goal for Gingerman was to have the best looking car on the track, so we spent about 3 days trying to get the car ready, and that was the first time that Justin and I were wrapping a car. We made a lot of mistakes and we needed a lot of help from people. We were wrapping up until probably midnight before the race started.
I think it's a good theme. I mean, I think there were a couple, let's call it strategy sessions that it took to get to that theme. We went through a couple of other ideas we were pretty sold on, and I think Joe brought up the NFS theme. We were all just like, yeah, we can do that.
I need your pink slip.
First, I'm gonna take your ride, then I'm gonna take your girl. Get ready for that.
Ever since we bought that car, we knew it was a BMW clone or a knockoff. And I spent most of my childhood playing Need for Speed Most Wanted. One of the most famous racing liveries from our childhood was the Need for Speed Most Wanted M3. We ended up going to Gingerman with an actual E46 with the actual Most Wanted theme.
You know, we had the silver car already, so the base car, we wouldn't have to paint it or wrap it. It was easy enough for us to execute without spending a crap ton of time on it. And then we could buy a carbon wing from eBay.
The only thing it's missing is underglow. Like, that would make it the perfect late 90s, early 2000 meme car. That would tie it up beautifully.
This is a nice car. Gauges, shifter, wheel. Is this all for show, or is there something more I should know about?
I'd like to take a little peek under the hood.
Some people didn't think it would be a good race car. I had fun driving it. Ripping through the gears on the 5-speed's kind of fun, not gonna lie. With those coilovers and the modifications that we made, it made a pretty good setup.
I felt a lot more confident in that car's ability than the S10's ability. Having Justin there to work on it and get it put together properly was good. I mean, I don't think the car would be where it is right now without Justin. And
Just good.
couldn't come up with a better word.
Honestly, after seeing the S10, I was just so happy to be in something different.
I don't know if I was confident, but I was at least less worried about this car than I was about the S10.
Oh, I never had any faith in this vehicle. I always knew it would be fine. I didn't expect it was going to be as competitive and as valuable as it was.
I think we spent maybe 15 to 20 days cumulative trying to get this car race prepped. We were really concerned about how this car was going to perform on the track. We didn't know how competitive it was going to be. We knew it would be faster than the truck, but we didn't know by how much.
Hey, there's something wrong with your ride. You left a huge oil slick at the start line.
I always have a saying for my car, if you can drive it for an hour, then you can drive it for 24. And that's how I felt with the Lincoln. I thought if it gets through the first hour, it's gonna make it through the rest.
Guess what it didn't do?
Yeah. Foreshadowing.
Saturday morning rolls around, I'm on the grid in the car and ready to go out, and maybe halfway around the first pace lap, all of the dash and the lights and everything shut off.
We spent about an hour or two at the beginning of the race trying to diagnose why we didn't have electronics.
I mean, I had no radio, I had no dash, I couldn't tell what speed I was going. The car was still running, but I couldn't, there was nothing.
We let him go, and then he just never came back around, and we're all on the radio trying to call him, and he's not answering.
I'm pretty sure I had like a donut half in my mouth when the car pulled up, and I just remember like spitting the donut out and be like, what is the problem? I had a multimeter, I was trying to grab wires, like, why is the car running, but the dash doesn't work? Like, none of this was making sense.
So I was like, that's it, like, this is not gonna work. Everything we planned for is failing, it's not happening.
I just wanted to get back. I was like, oh shit, we have a fast car. Like, we could do good this weekend.
I literally went in the garage and I grabbed a 14-foot cable and just hooked it straight up to the positive battery, and I ran it straight to the freaking Haltech, which is the most ghetto, not good way to make it work. And we got back out on track. Super stressful, and I was just happy to see it drive away.
After that was figured out, I think a lot of the scaries were still left in us.
It didn't exactly set the stage for how that weekend was gonna go, but it wasn't the best way to start it. I don't even think I went back out. I think it was Aaron by the time we fixed it.
Well, since I missed pit race with the S10, Gingerman was my first race. When I went out in the car, everything was going pretty well. It took me a couple laps to get used to the car. Instantly, I was addicted. That was just some of the most fun that I've ever had.
I think I only got about an hour, not even. I think I got about 45 minutes. So I was able to go get another donut and eat my donut.
Over the radio, I heard my team yelling that there was smoke coming out of the back of the car. That was probably the most heart-wrenching moment because I thought the engine blew up and I thought our weekend was done.
Oil out, huge smoke cloud, huge smoke cloud.
Being that was my first time out on the racetrack, I didn't really know what to do.
Luckily, Aaron shut the car off, saved the engine. If he kept driving, it wouldn't have taken long to empty out that whole engine. We put it in the garage, jacked it up. This one was very obvious. As soon as I went underneath the car, I saw the oil cooler that Jacob and I put on. Before the oil goes into the engine, it has to go through the filter. And before it goes through the filter, it goes through the cooler. The line goes into a sandwich plate. It just blew off. I was looking at the hose clamp. The hose clamp looked all right, but when I went to go put it back on, the hose clamp wouldn't get tight. We were being too precautious, and we actually stripped the hose clamp. We spent about an hour putting the oil line back on. I burnt my arm a ton because my only worry was getting the car back on the track, but it felt amazing when the car did not come back to the pits at all. We drove for another 13 hours and did not have another issue for the rest of the race.
Gingerman was my first little flash of hope. Came in with a bit of a plan. I was already kind of working with everything, doing scheduling and logistics stuff behind the scenes before we got there. But it ended up coming together. It was probably the most fun I've had, like, in a group outing. Fast-paced, insane weekend of trying to just keep the car on the track and see if we could get anywhere near competitive.
Grandpa car can actually go fast. The Lincoln is nimble. It's not fast, it can't beat much in a straight line, but boy can it turn.
Very underpowered compared to the normal race cars that I drive. But the suspension was actually more balanced than I suspected. And the braking was about what I suspected. At the end of the day, it was a kind of a fun car to just beat up and go around the track and have some fun with.
Like, the car did super well. Turns out Ford knew what they were doing, or Lincoln, but Ford knew what they were doing. They took a lot of really good chassis stuff together. Feels like an E39. Drives exactly the same. Like, if you blindfolded me, told me it was a 530i, I would have agreed with you.
We didn't do as bad as we thought we were going to do, especially considering we started at basically the very bottom of the roster. We left that weekend feeling much more confident for the next race than we did going into Gingerman.